Welcome everyone to Tales from the 90s, the podcast where we go back and look at my favorite decade. And this week, and the last couple weeks have been hotter than crap. So I think we're going to go, if you could, during this hot weather, if you could, I know everybody hates the winter too, but if you could just take like 5 minutes to go to December and cool off for a minute before you had to step back into the hot, wouldn't you do it? That's what we're doing this week. We're going back to December of 1993. Let's go.
Tales from the 90s never die. In our hearts they testify. VCRs and mixtape spins, where every tale begins. Tales from the Crypt, marathons, wrestling wars and morning yawns. Play kickball in the street, man those days can't be beat. Tales from the 90s never die.
Wouldn't that be cool if we could just go into any time period we wanted just to cool off or warm up if it was cold out? Anyway, none of that matters. We don't try to do that on here. What we try to do is go back and talk about all the different things that had happened during this time period. Like I said, December 1993. First of all, this is our how many trips we took into 93. I forgot to put that in my notes, so I'm going to go check real quick. This is our 5th trip back into 1993. As you know, if you watched us before, I don't go in order. I just pick a random year and a random month out of the 90s. And last time we were into 1993 was 5 episodes ago. But anyway, I turned 10 years old in December of 93 and was in 4th grade. Before we talk about that, I do have a bonus episode that's coming out, I believe might be July 8th, I think. Yeah, I think this one is coming out July 8th, which is Tuesday. By the time this comes out Wednesday, it'll be out the next week on Tuesday. But anyway, it's all about restaurants. And I made some different lists, some favorite places, and talk about some favorite memories and just favorite foods from different places. And the video ended up being almost like 2 hours long. So if you have 2 hours, just put it on the background and listen. Thank you. If you don't have time for that, it's fine. I understand. But I got all kinds of videos on here. A lot of rants I've been doing recently. Sorry, checking my phone for something. It's been crazy going on around here. But anyway, we're going to leave the craziness. Leave all my anger about all that stuff and about worthless wrestlers behind. And we're going to go back to 1993 of December. And actually, if you know me, I'm talking about my stepdad, Marky Foe, and all the horrible times with him and the funny times of making fun of him. I actually have some rare good memories of Marky Foe in this podcast to come. But first, we're going to start talking about books. And if you notice, not only do I pick a random time and month and year, I also pick. It's not the same order I go through things in here. I do have a set list of topics that I talk about, and I'll add or subtract as I need to that. It's not like a set list where I have to do it. But I don't, like I said, I don't do it in order because I think that gets kind of boring. Like, now it's time for this. Now we're talking about this. So I randomly pick. Anyway, we're going to talk about books at first. But last week I actually forgot to mention the book that came out last week was September 1992, and I forgot to mention the Goosebumps had come out with the 3rd ever Goosebump book, Monster Blood. You know, that was a huge one to pass up there. Monster Blood was like a huge, not just book, but also the episode on Goosebumps was memorable. This one's memorable too, the one that came out this month. It was the 14th book of Goosebumps, The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. If you guys remember that, it was also an episode on Goosebumps. It was actually a one of their 1 hour specials that they did. But of course, when they showed it later on reruns, it was a 2-part episode. But definitely a memorable one. All the Goosebumps books were memorable in their own ways, but the first few of them were really memorable. Of course, that's where you get the Say Cheese and Die, the Haunted Mask, Night of the Living Dummy, all the, Slappy, all the iconic ones from Goosebumps. But yeah, that's the Goosebumps that came out, and of course later on they would come out all the different Goosebumps series, not just TV series, but different book series too. But at first it was just plain old Goosebumps, and trust me, that was enough for us kids. But talking a little bit about wrestling now. Of course, I was just talking about wrestling before. Obviously, I love wrestling, but couple events held. One was what's called as a super card. Before ECW was on pay-per-view, they'd have these things called super cards, where it would be like their big event each month, and they would usually release it on home video later on, and also they'd take that matches that happened there and break them down onto their TV shows. So they'd have like their do their TV for the month or the couple weeks or whatever. This was called ECW Holiday Hell, the Body Count. There's been a few of the Holiday Hells. This is the first ever one from the ECW arena in Philadelphia, of course. Terry Funk defeated Sabu for the ECW Championship in a no DQ match. And I know you're probably like, why is there a no DQ match in ECW? Isn't it all no disqualification? Yes, a giant bottle of Mellow Yellow. I wish I was drinking some Surge right now, going back to the 90s. I don't think Surge was out in 93, though. I could be wrong, but I don't think it was. I know it ain't out now, and that's a crime against nature. But anyway, there was a time, this was still Eastern Championship Wrestling, before Extreme Championship Wrestling. When they were sometimes a little lax with their rules, but as you see at this time, a no DQ match, that implies there was DQs. And technically, if you ever look back at ECW, they never expressly say that all their matches are no disqualification. It's more of a fact the referee lets them do what they want. It's kind of the way it was, because there have been a few times that a ref has stopped a match, or there's been a disqualification because of like excessive stuff going on. It's very rare, but it has happened during the ECW Extreme times. So like I said, I've never seen them, unless I'm wrong and you guys got evidence to show me, that I've never heard them say expressly like every match you can use whatever weapons you want. It was just more of like the referee's just gonna allow it. I don't know when that happened, at some point, but anyway. We also had Pat Tanaka defeating Rocco Rock in a body count match, and each person's partner, for Pat Tanaka, it was Paul Diamond. I'm blanking on the name of their tag team. Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, Rocco Rock's partner was, of course, Johnny Grunge, Public Enemy. I remember them. But anyway, they were in a cage at ringside, and the losing partner's cage was blown up, and it was horrible. It was like flash paper. It was made fun of by everybody, and they never even aired it. Reminds me of that crappy AEW cage blow up thing that they had, or the ring exploding, whatever it was. Just like with the WCW with the Doomsday cage match where Abdullah the Butcher got electrocuted, and it was just, that stuff's never worked in wrestling. It's never looked realistic, because everybody knows they're not getting killed anyway, so what's the point? Anyway, the main event, Tommy Dreamer won the Lights Out Battle Royal, winning a turkey stuffed with $100 bills. ECW was way different at this time. But the very next day was December 27th, and they had WCW Starrcade from Charlotte, North Carolina. This was a big Starrcade. It was, first of all, it was the 10th anniversary. If you don't know the history of Starrcade, it was created in 1983 by Jim Crockett Promotions, and it was the first big Jim Crockett Promotions event. They had Ric Flair defeated Harley Race for the title at that, and it was like the biggest match of the year, because Harley Race had Bob Orton Jr. and Dick Slater take Ric Flair out, and he came back with a vengeance, and Ric Flair was one of the rare times he was babyface. But yeah, it was called Starrcade, A Flair for the Gold. Well, this is the 10th anniversary in Charlotte, and it does involve Ric Flair, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Steve Austin, the future Stone Cold Steve Austin, defeated WCW US champion Dusty Rhodes. Did I put Dusty Rhodes? I meant Dustin Rhodes. He defeated Dustin Rhodes 2 falls to none in a 2 out of 3 falls match. which normally when there's a 2 out of 3 falls match, you're almost guaranteed one wrestler's going to get a fall, the other wrestler's going to get a fall, and then we're going to get the third. But they switched it up a little bit with this, and I like when they do that sometimes. Sometimes the expected is good. You expect it, and it makes sense. But sometimes the unexpected is good if it makes sense and not just a swerve for swerve's sake. Looking at you, Vince Russo. Anyway, the main event was Ric Flair challenging Big Van Vader for the WCW World Heavyweight title. And Rick had to put his career on the line. And, of course, he won. But this was one where they had his family, his kids there. You can see all his little kids. And made a big deal out of his kids were celebrating with him at the end. It was like a really big moment in WCW history. Emotional match. It was really good. But also that month, Alundra Blaze won the WWF Women's title in a tournament, defeating Heidi Lee Morgan, which I have no recollection of her, sorry, on All-Star Wrestling December 13th. And the title had been vacant for like 3 years when the former champion Rockin' Robin left the WWF. So they didn't really have women's wrestling. The history of women's wrestling in WWF pretty much sucked. But anyway, of course, we know Alundra Blaze would become one of the biggest women's champion of that era, and of course, everybody knows when she went to WCW and dropped the title in the trash. But it was kind of an end of an era, commentary-wise, because Bobby Heenan left the WWF for WCW. The memorable way he left. He left Gorilla Monsoon throwing him out of the building at the end, and then he tried to get back in. But yeah, he went to WCW, and Bobby Heenan, one of the all-time greatest color commentators. That guy was miles ahead of anybody else. Just his one-liners and how quick he comes up with things. Even funnier than Jerry Lawler in my mind. Like his quick wit was definitely more advanced than anybody's I've ever heard on commentary. But another title change that happened on December 4th. Kevin Sullivan and the Tasmaniac, Taz, when he was playing literally like supposed to be a Tasmanian devil, I guess. But they defeated ECW Tag Team Champions Tommy Dreamer and Johnny Gunn on an episode of Hardcore TV. So that's a little wrestling news. Like I said, no WWF pay-per-views at the time. We're going to move on to a little bit of sports. This was actually the very end of the NFL football season. The Bengals were the worst team in the whole league, 3-13. Not just in our division, not just in our conference, in the whole NFL. But the playoff teams for that year were the Bills, the Oilers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, and Steelers for the AFC. And for the NFC, it was the Cowboys, 49ers, Lions, Giants, Vikings, and Packers. And then the Cowboys defeated the Bills in the Super Bowl, which would happen the next month, which is something that never happened before. The Bills and the two teams playing each other in the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. That never happened, and the Cowboys won both. Of course, that was a stretch when the Bills lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. They're due, just not this year. Please. Bengals have got to get it done soon. But also, the end of the month, December 30th, Ohio State defeated BYU in the Holiday Bowl. Ohio State were co-Big Ten champions with Wisconsin. And I've talked about this before. The old ways of college football with the co-champions and the co-national champions are just completely stupid. I'm glad they have a playoff system now. It's way better. Toys this month, instead of talking about the Happy Meal toys, I'm going to talk about Christmas toys. Obviously, it's Christmas of 1993 here. And, of course, especially those days, do they even have the big JCPenney, Toys R Us? Well, I know Toys R Us went out of business, but slowly came back, but I don't know where they're at. But do they even have the big, what we call the wish book? The big giant catalog of toys that comes out around September or so, maybe a little later, I'm not sure exactly, but all the kids are like, I want this, and you're lucky if you even get something out of it. But, just want to talk about some of the most popular toys around this time. Sorry, I'm going to get another drink of my giant 2-liter of Mellow Yellow. The number one toy everybody was talking about was the Talk Boy. Because It was super popular in Home Alone 2. And every kid wanted it. This was the if you don't know what it is, they had a talk boy and a talk girl because they wanted to market it to girls too. It was the same thing, it was just pink. And they called it a talk girl. It was literally the same thing. But you can record yourself on it and play it back in funny voices, and you can of course you can listen to music on it because it was done by tape. But that thing was so popular, especially at the Christmas time here, like everybody wanted a talk boy or a talk girl. Can't remember if talk girls were out at the same time or if that was later, but I know for a fact talk boy was. They also had a Fisher Price tape recorder, which I remember having. I think Clint had it because it was, for little kids. It was like a little kids version of it, where you could put in a tape and listen to it and record it, but it didn't have all the functions of the talk boy. But I specifically remember Clinton having that, and then Tales from the Crypt would come on every Saturday night at 11, or not 11, at midnight after, because 11 o'clock was Mad TV, but midnight and then 12:30, and we would record some of the episodes on a tape, on a blank tape we had on that thing, and we were saying funny stuff on it. It was the start of the Marky Fo radio show, which I'll have to talk about sometime. It was a thing we did. It was in the 2000s, so I'll have to find the time to talk about it, but those are some legendary tapes in there. But anyway, back to the toys. The Nerf Arrow Storm. It was like a Nerf gun that shot like 6 Nerf arrows like in rapid succession. Those were real popular. Nerf guns and water guns in the 90s. The bigger the better. You could tell the rich kids by the poor kids the size of their water guns and their Nerf guns. The Magnadoodle. It was like, if you remember the old Etch-a-Sketch, it was the same type of technology with magnets inside, except when you wrote, you could actually write with it. You didn't have to turn knobs like on the Etch-a-Sketch. That was pretty popular because it was by these days it's very basic, mundane technology, but at the time everybody wanted a Magnadoodle. Car washes for like Matchbox or Hot Wheels cars. This was one of the most popular things ever. If you had the car wash, I can't remember the exact name, if it had an exact name, but it was the one that you could put water in that could actually wash the car, and had the little spinning dryer you could go through, like a full service car wash. Like, man, kids back then, we're gonna record ourselves on a tape and play it back funny, and we're gonna use magnets to draw and shoot Nerf arrows and and play with little toy cars, and that's all you needed. Nowadays, you don't get as much of that anymore. Every kid's got a screen of some kind in front of them. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's a lot you can do on those. I'm not necessarily saying, I think kids should be limited. Definitely limited to what they can see, but also limited to the time on there, so that way they, can go outside. But some people are introverted and don't get along with others, and, can get lost inside of it. And that's not really a debate I'm trying to go into here. It was just a different time, and just the simple things that made us happy then. Like, if you try to introduce them now because of the way the world's changed, like, they would look at this stuff. The Nerf gun might interest them for a little bit. The Talk Boy for a couple minutes. The Magnadoodle, they write on it and be done with it. And the car wash, they might play with it 5 minutes. But, it just, it wouldn't be anything. Barney dolls were the rage at this time, both the regular ones and the talking ones, and all the Barney VHS tapes they came out with. Also the Disney ones they came out with. I just loved on the Disney tapes, you'll get it. Even the DVDs when they came out with them. It was like, this is the last time on DVD or on VHS, and then it'll be out again next year. Like, yeah, it was really the last time. We really believe you. But anyway, those were popular. You guys remember that Tiger handheld games? They were the ones with the little not very good at all graphics, and like the little, you got your directional pad on one side and a couple buttons over here, and it'd be like stuff like Aladdin, or even like a actual like Sega game like Sonic the Hedgehog, and just like the little Tiger games you got to put batteries into, very low tech, but everybody had a bunch of these. That I like playing the blackjack or poker ones. The 5-card draw. No, I didn't turn out to be a gambler. It was just they were fun to me. I would sit there and play for hours. I remember one time being sick at home and just playing video poker all day long just to occupy myself. And I was actually sick. I wasn't pretending to be sick that day. I'll talk about that some other time. But of course, the game systems were huge sellers at Christmas time. Game Genie, if you remember that, where you could have you could use cheat codes and stuff. Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis were the big systems at the time. Sega Game Gear had come out recently. That was their version of Nintendo's Game Boy. Speaking of Nintendo, they actually came out with a redesigned NES, the first Nintendo, where you actually load the cartridges on the top, sort of like Super Nintendo. And the controller was, like, I think they call it a wishbone shape, like the Super Nintendo controller. So they tried to make it look similar to that. I don't know what the point was, to fool little kids into thinking they got a Super Nintendo, or just to modernize it, I don't know. But yeah, they came out with that then, but just some very popular stuff. Which, one of them, you see my Megazord behind me. I can't even point right there. Something or other. I can't look at the camera and point. Anyway, one of the most popular toys at the time were Power Rangers, because Power Rangers just came out in September, so they were all the rage. They would be even bigger the next year, but this is the year the first Ranger toys came out, and I remember for Christmas I got the Green Ranger, which was my favorite, the classic one where you flip the head, where you got the Green Ranger, he's in the Green Ranger suit, but he's got the Green Ranger head, and then you flip it over. I'm getting a phone call here. Waiting on a Walmart order, so making sure it's not them calling me for some reason. Anyway, they would flip the head over, and it would be Tommy's face. And that was just like the greatest. I played with that non-stop. But, and then another Power Ranger toy I got for Christmas, it was either next year or the year after, was when they had the Thunder Megazords, the second set of Zords after the original Zords had been destroyed after Lord Zed got there. But it was the Red Dragon, which was it Jason or it was Jason? Yeah, I was trying to think, it was before Rocky took over, but I think it was Jason. Anyway, it was the Red Ranger Zord, where it was like a red dragon, but then you could actually make it into the Red Dragon Zord, which was pretty cool. But anyway, that was either next year or the year after. But this is the Christmas I made Marky Foe cry, and I'd never heard of somebody crying like happy tears. Like, for some reason, I'd never heard of that as a kid. But I got him like a coffee cup that said "World's Greatest Dad" or something, which of all the lies I've ever told, that might have been the greatest one there. But those shop at school things they had every Christmas. Well, I got to have a little bit of money that year to buy something for my brothers and my mom and dad. Well, my stepdad. I probably wasn't allowed around my dad at this time because of Marky Foe, or that might have been to come. I can't remember which. But anyway, I got this for him, and he was like crying, and I was like, my friend was like, "You don't like it?" Everybody laughed. Well, Josh didn't, because he didn't know. He thought it was serious too. But my mom and Marky Foe were laughing like, "No, sometimes people cry when they're happy." And like I said, that was actually some rare good memories with him, because my birthday is 2 days before Christmas. So 2 days before this, he made, because that was his big thing in making people what they want for birthday. And during this time, my favorite food on earth was barbecue ribs. So he was actually out there, and I remember it was cold. It wasn't snowing or anything, but it was cold, and he was on the porch grilling out barbecue ribs for me for my 10th birthday. And I remember it was a big deal, because they're like, "You're in double digits, you'll never go back to, you always be in double digits unless you live to 100, which that ain't gonna happen, obviously. But just some rare good memories, probably the only few that I have. So no bad Marky Foe stories this time. We'll talk a little bit about TV now. There was a couple shows that were ending this year. Not much going on in December as far as TV. Normally the shows that are on are in hiatus until after the new year, because people are watching Christmas stuff. And actually, that'll get into what I'm going to talk about next. But a couple shows that were ending at the time were Sonic the Hedgehog, the very first Sonic cartoon. It made my top 50 Saturday morning kids TV shows list, and Tom and Jerry Kids. That ended too, and it also made my list. But definitely some great cartoons. Of course, there would be a lot more Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons to come, and Tom and Jerry. I don't know if they probably made more of those, but everybody was still watching all the classic ones, just like the classic Looney Tunes. You could watch them for days and never see the same one twice. But I normally do the TGIF lineup and the either I do a Saturday morning cartoon lineup and Nickelodeon lineup, or at least just a Nickelodeon lineup. I'm actually going to do something completely different this time, because I found a site. Well, it's the same site I always use for my research, Fandom, but they actually have the listings for December of all the Christmas TV specials, and just talk about a few of them. I'm not going to go into length and detail of all those. You can check out a bonus episode I did with my wife, our favorite Christmas memories, where I talk about some of my favorite Christmas shows, and I'll mention some of them on here when they come up. But anyway, this is the 1993 Christmas special and movie schedule, and again, I'm not going to get into everything. It actually started in November, but I'm going to start it in December, because that's when they really started the Christmas stuff. December 1st, we've got Rudolph's Shiny New Year, which I need to click. I might click on a few of these. I'm trying to remember this one specifically. Is this the one with the heat and the cold misers? Let me see. I'm not sure. No, I don't remember this one. I'm reading the description. I don't remember Rudolph's Shiny New Year. I remember the title, but I don't remember watching it if I did. But on December 1st, on CBS, we had Mickey's Christmas Carol, which is my favorite all-time Christmas movie, cartoon, special, whatever you want to call it. Mickey's Christmas Carol was my favorite. It's basically just the retelling of the classic Charles Dickens Christmas Carol, told by, using the Mickey Mouse Disney characters, which I somehow remember as a kid as being like an hour and a half long movie, but it's literally like 28 minutes long. Like, it's super quick to get through. And in fact, it's also shown in one of those, I think it's Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas or Twice Upon a Christmas. One of those two has this in it as one of the three segments, because it's an hour and a half. But that was always my favorite version of that story, my favorite Christmas anything. But December 2nd on CBS, we've got Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from 1964, that classic. It's hard to believe that was like created by Macy's and wasn't, because I always think back, everybody thinks of Rudolph as the #1 reindeer, but in all the Christmas stories other than that one, or maybe some that have come out since, Rudolph's not mentioned because he wasn't, he was made up by Macy's as an attempt to sell stuff, but it just became so ingrained, and that cartoon, more like stop motion, I think they call it. It wasn't a cartoon, it was like stop motion animation. Just the classic story of, Rudolph. Everybody made fun of him because of his nose and all this other stuff, but he ended up saving Christmas, and just everybody knows Rudolph and the classic song. I'm not going to mention everything, just the stuff that I remember. Like Laugh-In Past Christmas Present. I don't know what that is. But The Town Santa Forgot seems familiar, so I'm going to look at that real quick. Made by Hanna-Barbera. Is it Hanna-Barbera or Hanna-Barbera? How do you pronounce it? I've always said Hanna-Barbera. But maybe it's Barbara, I don't know. But anyway, it was the same people that did the Flintstones and stuff. No, I've never seen that. Some of these I'm actually going to look up for when it comes to Christmas time. But anyway, the same day on ABC is Flintstone Family Christmas. I remember this classic. Everybody loves and knows the Flintstones. If you know the Flintstones, you love them. I don't see how people can watch that and be like, it sucks. Flintstones were awesome. So was the Jetsons. It's so funny, like completely opposite time periods, but it was made by the same people and had the same type of humor. Either funny stuff about the past or funny stuff about the future. But anyway, that's here nor there. I'm talking about Flintstone Family Christmas. I haven't seen that since I was a kid, though. See, the Care Bears Nutcracker Suite. I never watched that, but I'm sure my wife probably watched that then. Let's see. The Smurfs Christmas Special on Cartoon Network. I don't think I've seen that one. It's a Wonderful Tiny Toons Christmas Special. I have not seen that one. I'm going to have to check that out. And we've got Frosty the Snowman on December 6th from 1969. Everybody knows that. Of course, the iconic song from that and the story about the magician's hat that goes on the snowman the kids build at school, and he comes alive, but he has to get to the North Pole, and he goes in the greenhouse, gets melted, but then Santa brings him back. It's a great story. And then Frosty Returns, I think John Goodman voiced Frosty in that. I don't remember a ton about that. I'm going to have to watch that again, but I remember watching it. Obviously not as good as Frosty the Snowman. Let's see here. We got Casper's First Christmas, which I've never seen. Yogi Bear's All-Star Comedy Christmas Caper, another one I haven't seen, but still I mention it because I love Yogi Bear. Let's see here. I'm going down to the thing. A Muppet Family Christmas. I only mention that because I did not like any of the Muppet stuff, and I definitely didn't like that. The only Muppet thing I like is Muppet Babies. Had to do it. You know me, if you've been watching this long enough. Let's see. Son of Stimpy on Nickelodeon. I haven't seen that episode of Ren and Stimpy, but I guarantee that's hilarious. Let's see. Sorry, I broke my eye there. Doug's Christmas Story, an episode of Doug on Nickelodeon. Okay, I've never heard of this one. I Saw Mommy Kicking Santa Claus, Part 1. I'm gonna have to look that thing up. That sounds hilarious. Sounds like something in the vein of what you call it? Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, where they made the cartoon based on that funny song. So I don't know if it was out at this time. I think it might have been a couple years after this, but we'll find out because I'm sure if it was, it's on this list. White Trash Christmas. Sounds like it's in the vein of I Saw Mommy Kicking Santa Claus. The Leprechaun's Christmas Gold. It was Disney Channel, so probably not the Leprechaun I'm thinking of. That'd be hilarious. Leprechaun going after Santa Claus because he has like gold on his sleigh or something. Let's see. 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. I think that's the one I'm thinking of. The one with the mice in it and the clock. Oh no, this is an episode of Home Improvement. But I think that was the one I'm thinking of is called 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. But yeah, that was an episode of Home Improvement, Christmas episode. Let's see here. A lot of repeats on here, of course. A lot of stuff on Disney Channel. This is before, I can't remember if, of course it's Freeform now. It was ABC Family. Before that was Fox Family. Before that was the Family Channel. I don't remember if they'd started their Christmas stuff at this time or not. Like I said, a lot of repeats on here. Of course, leading up to Christmas. The Worst Noel, Married with Children episode. Gotta love that. Married with Children, one of my favorite shows of all time. And sorry, just going through the list here. Christmas episode of The Nanny, a Christmas episode of Lassie, Mickey's Christmas Carol again. We're getting to my birthday now. We got A Garfield Christmas. I've always heard that that's like one of the big Christmas things, but I don't know if I've ever seen that special. Again, I've got a lot of stuff here on I need to like check out during Christmas. And then we're at Christmas Eve here. A lot of the repeats, Mickey's Christmas Carol, all kinds of Christmas episodes of shows. Because even though some shows went to holiday or break during this time, they would have a Christmas episode ready. And then Christmas Day, they've got The Year Without a Santa Claus. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. That's one of my favorites, where it's like the origin story of him and the Burgermeister that shuts down Christmas, and like the whole origin story of Santa Claus. One of them. But that was one of my favorite ones of all time. That, Frosty, and Rudolph are some of my favorites. And yeah, that's just some repeat stuff. And obviously the Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer wasn't out yet, but just some good stuff there. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone. Expecting a Walmart delivery. I don't know if I've mentioned that or not. So I want to make sure they're not, oh, we don't have hamburgers, so instead we're going to send you garbage bags. I don't know. Sometimes they do some weird substitutions. Anyway, back to the regular podcast. Only a couple more things to talk about. I promise this ain't going to be forever. Talk about a little bit about music. The Hot 100 countdown. Of course, I wasn't listening to pop music at the time, but I always give the countdown on here anyway. The I'd Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That by Meatloaf was #1 for 1 week in December, plus all of November, so it was a 5-week total. It was a weird song. Like, didn't think Meatloaf was like popular in the early 90s, but apparently he was. He was a weird artist. I remember him mostly from being an episode of Tales from the Crypt. Ironically, one where he gets eaten. So, Meatloaf gets eaten. But, the song Again by Janet Jackson, which I've never heard of that song in my life, was #1 for 2 weeks. Hero by Mariah Carey. I know the title, but I don't recognize the song. But it was #1 plus 3 weeks into January, so 4 weeks total. Back on my charts, the country charts, #1 for a week, Honky Tonk Bar Association by Garth Brooks, my favorite artist of all time. That's just a fun song. My Second Home by Tracy Lawrence. Again, another funny song, or fun song. It is funny too, about this guy who lost his woman, so because he was always at the bar, she used to call it his second home. Well, now his second home become his first, because she's gone, so he's staying. He's like, his jukebox is an alarm clock. He wakes up in a corner booth. Just a funny song, but also if you just think about it, it's like a depressing song, but done in a funny style. And then the final song that went to #1 for the rest of the month, well, technically the year too, was I Don't Call Him Daddy by Doug Supernall. He died just a few years, actually I think it was more than a few years later, but sadly, but he had a great first 3 albums. But that song I Don't Call Him Daddy is definitely one that stuck into my head, especially during the time like where I was calling Marky Fo Dad because I was being made to. Again, try not to make it negative about him this time. But that song just kind of hit me, and I know it had to have been hitting my dad too. I know he probably heard that song for the first time and probably cried, which is really, I don't want to think about, but just because he wasn't able to see me. If you've never heard that song, listen to it, and you'll see why I'm saying all that. But that's music. We're going to talk a little bit about video games. I know I've done it a little bit throughout the thing, but I'm going to go into the best-selling games of the month. And by the way, I'm not doing a year in, even though it's the end of the year. When I do a full year's worth of an episode, like January to December of a year, so just say 93 for this one, I'll do one final episode about that year, and it'll be all the like awards for music and the best-selling games of the year, the best-selling toys of the year, highest-rated TV show, that type of stuff. We'll all be safe for that. I don't want to put it all in this one, because then I'll have nothing to like wrap it up with, and I don't want to talk about the same stuff I just talked about, or show clips as like a best of thing. Anything I make on here, I just want it to be original content. But anyway, the best-selling video games for December for NES, which was still selling Nintendo games, was Tetris 2. I've never played Tetris 2. Everybody's played Tetris 1, I think, if you're from my generation. Super Nintendo's best-selling game was Super Bomberman, which I've never played before, but I've, of course, heard all kinds of good things about. #1 game for Sega Genesis, my all-time favorite Sega Genesis game, Sonic Spinball. If it wasn't for Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 for Dreamcast, it would be my favorite Sonic game. But it's pinball, But it's just something about it. It's just so much fun. I love that game. I've actually got emulator version of it, and I actually bought it off of Amazon for the computer for Windows. So I love that game. Sega CD's number one game, a Sonic CD, which I've played on a PS2 game, which I actually had Sonic Spinball on it too, but a PS2 game that came out with like some of the Sonic greatest hits, all the classic Genesis games. I played that on there, but never actually played the original Sega CD. It would be pretty cool to play. Game Boy's number one game is Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. I know a lot of people love Legend of Zelda. I never really got into those games, not my type of gameplay. And the number one game for Game Gear was Mortal Kombat. Of course, Mortal Kombat, you can't go wrong with those games. Although, they did go wrong when they put it on the original Mortal Kombat on Super Nintendo with no fatalities and no blood. Of course, they fixed that with Mortal Kombat 2. They allowed that to be on there. Just had a warning on it. But the one movie that came out this month, we're moving to movies now, there's just one of them, that I have great memories of is Grumpy Old Men. Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. Man, those guys were hilarious in that movie. All fighting over this one woman, and they never really gotten along anyway. And the one's son is in love with the other one's daughter. And of course, the Grumpy Old Men 2 is hilarious as well, but the first one's the best. One final thing to talk about is my favorite TV show of all time, Tales from the Crypt. They were in their final 2 episodes of the 5th season. And these aren't 2 of the best episodes, I'll tell you that. Just being honest there. The first one's halfway horrible. It had Clancy Brown, who I know mostly from playing Gus the cop on Pet Sematary 2, but he's been in many other things. He was the main guard on the Green Mile. What's the Green Mile? No, Shawshank Redemption. I always get those confused. They're both Stephen King prison movies. Yeah, the main guard where Andy tells him, like, that line when they're on the roof, like, do you trust your wife? And he about throws him off when he's talking about his taxes. But anyway, he plays a guy who runs a chemical company, and they discover, like, this preservative or something, like it helps with, like, aging. But discover it in Brazil, and of course it's a typical Tales from the Crypt thing where there's this tribe of, like, these uncivilized people, and the only way he can get the compound for this chemical is to offer a sacrifice, so he gives him his best friend to kill him. Anyway, all his business partners start dying off one by one, and guess who's back from the dead to do that? But the second one is called Till Death Do We Part, starring John Stamos. He's like a gigolo, and he gets involved with this mafia woman, and she but also is like in love with like this waitress, and is like making her mad, so there's like a love triangle, and she makes him choose. Like I said, not the 2 best episodes of the series, but the start of the next season was called Let the Punishment Fit the Crime. I love that episode. It's so creepy. But it's not like Tales from the Crypt had no good episodes after that. It's just, those aren't 2 of the best. Probably why they just hit them for December. But I feel like we rushed through this one pretty quick. Normally it takes forever and a day. I don't know if this one did or not. But next time we're with you here on the regular podcast, like I said, check out the bonus episode and all the other stuff that'll be coming out. Jackasses of the Week, you'll want to stay tuned for another one of those. That one's going to be a good one. I've already recorded it before this one. But next time we're with you on the main podcast, we're going to be on episode 37. By the way, I've only missed 2 weeks of recording these, so I've done 35 weeks worth of... I've done 36 weeks worth of, but I mean, out of 38 weeks. When I started, I was like I'm not going to miss a week for anything, and then I got food poisoning one week, and then the other week I had horrible freaking eye infection that was like messing with literally my whole head. Anyway, you don't care about any of that. Episode 37 next week, we're going backwards in time to November of 1991. It's the second time we're going through 91, actually. Last one was way back on episode 12, but at this time I was 7 years old in 2nd grade, living at my granny's house in Newtown, Ohio. But yeah, I was 7 years old in 2nd grade on next episode, so I don't remember if I said what I was at this time. I was Like I was turning 10. I was in 4th grade at this time. The lovely Mrs. Weiss was my teacher. I got along so well with her. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.
Tales from the 90's never die. In our hearts they testify. VCRs and mixtape spins. Wherever